Miss Corrigan, check my math. I'm counting 4 members. I believe we have the service director's representative, the clerk of courts representative, towing company's representative. And myself. I was forgetting myself. So Officer Miles, are you here on behalf of the chief?
Yes, I am here.
You're the
How are
chief
you?
representative?
Yes, I am.
Okay, great.
Then we do have a quorum.
So that'll be 5, correct? All right. It is now 1:31. So just to respect everybody's time, we'll go ahead and call this meeting to order. My name's John York. Rebecca Trudeau wasn't able to make the meeting today, so I'm covering for her as the mayor's representative. We do have 5 members out of 8, so we can go ahead and get started. The first item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes. Do we need to have any discussion about changes? If there's no changes, can I get a motion to approve?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Can I get a vote for all in favor?
Aye. Aye.
All right, the minutes are approved. The next item on the agenda is under old business concerning the adoption of the district map of the tow companies. And just give a brief update that map was recommended for approval by this body. It did go to council and it was passed by council on February 4th of this year. So the legislation and the map are on file with council. That's actually an ordinance 41/2025. So I don't know if there was any need for general discussion or someone wanted to report on how things are going. But we could open it up to that. And if there's no need for general discussion, I guess what I'd say is we could probably go ahead and remove this item since it is resolved. Unless there's some reason to keep it on the agenda. Could I get a motion to remove it from the agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, so that will pass and that item will be removed from the agenda. It looks like the next item under new business is complaints. It seems that there are certain tow trucks that are arriving on the scene and leaving without cleaning up debris. Do we have anybody probably from the police department to report on that?
Sergeant Sheriff.
Yes, I do have a report from the 20th of February. There was a vehicle crash at Route 8 South just before the Central. The responding tow company that showed up on scene did not put down any type of oil dry or oil absorbent, which caused a significant delay in cleaning up the scene and cleaning up the highway. And it also resulted in the fire department having to have a hazmat situation where they cleaned it up.
Thanks for that report. Was the company contacted and advised that they didn't do the cleanup properly?
Yes, they were. When they were contacted that they failed to put down any type of oil dry, the office person that was working for the company at the time stated on their tow report, their tow truck driver did in fact put down oil absorbent which was absolutely not the case.
Okay. So I guess I'm looking for a recommendation. Is this something we keep an eye on until the next meeting and report back on how, whether they've corrected things or?
I had several conversations with the owner of the tow company. He stated very clearly that he will address the issue with the employee and correct the issue. And as of that date, I've not had any more complaints.
Okay. Well, I guess there's a couple ways we could go. We could keep this on the agenda till the next meeting and see if there's future violations, or we could remove it from the agenda and it could be brought back on if necessary.
My suggestion would be to leave it on the agenda, giving that tow company the opportunity to show that they've made the appropriate changes to operations and that'll be taken care of in the future.
Okay, unless there's any opposition to that, we'll just go ahead and keep it on the agenda. All right, so that's how that one will be handled. I guess I would just at this point, open it up to whether or not any new business needs to be added for the next meeting.
There are a few other complaints. There was a complaint back on the 16th of March. There was a semi truck that needed to be towed. It was at I-77 North at Wilbeth Road. When the information was called into our dispatch center, the information that the dispatch center was given put the location for the tow that was needed in Kinney's tow district. So Kinney's towing was dispatched to the scene. When they arrived at the scene, it was later discovered that it actually was not in their tow district. It was actually in Miller's towing district. But since they were already sent to the scene and they were already on scene talking with the fire department on how they were going to handle the tow, Kinney's went ahead and took the tow, although it was in Miller's tow district.
Did Miller's come to the scene as well?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay. Has anyone from Miller's complained?
Yes. It was brought to my attention by the owner, and then I looked into it, and then with the information that was given to our dispatch center, Kinney's towing would have been the correct tow district that this vehicle would have been located in, but in reality and actuality, where the actual location of the vehicle was, it put it further behind, which would have been in Miller's tow district. So that was an issue.
Okay. But the police department did the best it could with the information that it had.
That is correct.
Yeah. I mean, this is just going to happen from time to time. Of course, we want to avoid it.
Correct.
So I don't know what the recommendation is for that.
I had several conversations with the communication center supervisors, and it's critically important that they verify and double check the actual locations of the vehicles and the locations where they're at. So that was made to the communication supervisors. So since then, I've not had any issues.
Okay, great. Are there other, you said there were a couple other complaints?
And then there's one more from the 28th of March. There was a 7-car accident. And this is the one that was referenced earlier, where an outside tow company arrived on scene and they took 2 of the vehicles out of the 4 that needed to be towed.
And they left the other 2 vehicles?
It was Kinney's tow district. So it was a 7-car accident. Out of those 7 cars, 3 of the vehicles were able to be drivable. So the owners of those vehicles drove those vehicles away from the scene. The other 4 vehicles that were left, Kinney's took 2 of those vehicles. They towed it, and the other 2, the citizens accepted the services of Big Mike's Towing, which is located in Barberton.
Okay. So what's the complaint on that one?
That Big Mike's Towing was poaching vehicles from Kinney's.
Had the police, but at that point, had the police department, I guess, requested dispatch send Kinney's?
Yeah, well, so the officer, when he was dispatched to the scene, he drove past the accident going northbound, and there was already a tow truck on scene. And he didn't know what company it was from, but there was already a flatbed with a vehicle loaded on the back of that flatbed on scene. When the officer arrived, that tow service, it turned out to be Big Mike's. They had directed traffic into one lane, and the driver of that vehicle started sweeping up some of the debris from the accident before anybody from Akron Police even arrived on scene. This was already being done prior to any officer arriving. During the officer's approach to the scene and started getting information from the citizens that were involved in the accident, two of the citizens that were involved decided to accept the towing services from Big Mike's.
So does the police department have a problem with Big Mike's removing vehicles before APD even has a chance to get on scene and determine what happened?
This would be in what we would consider a private tow. So if a citizen involved in an accident decides to accept services from another company, there's really nothing the Akron Police Department can do to stop them from doing that. We cannot force them. We cannot force a citizen to accept towing services from any particular company. If they decide they want to use a service, then that's their choice. The officer on scene did in fact request 4 flatbeds to respond to the scene. I believe that was before he realized 3 of those vehicles could be driven away from the scene. So the major complaint was that this was a poaching situation from Big Mike's, and they did take 2 of the cars. The owner was very upset, demanded that the Big Mike's tow company drop the 1 car and leave it, and I guess he refused. So that caused some friction and some, that caused a little issue out there where the owner became pretty upset about it, and rightfully so. I can understand that.
This is Brian from Kenny's Towing. I would like to speak on this a little bit, if I could, please.
Sure. Go
Okay,
ahead.
so we was called for 4 flatbeds, and we brought 4 flatbeds out there within the 20 minutes that we're allowed to get out there. And the complaints that I've got is this towing company, and this could just be an isolated, hopefully this is just going to be an isolated incident, but the tow company had actually loaded a vehicle prior to the police even getting their investigation started. That could be a problem if there's someone that gets killed in this accident, and all of a sudden they're just picking up cars before the police even get there. They don't know the protocol, how things work. To my knowledge, I mean, we're supposed to be doing the expedited tows and then the impound vehicles. I would consider this an expedited tow. I can't really understand where the police, I'd like to get some clarity on that, as far as if it's blocking 2 lanes of Route 8 going south at 8 o'clock in the morning, I would think that would fall under an expedited tow. We need to be there within 20 minutes. How they're allowed to end up having another towing. I know the situation, they didn't allow or have somebody do this, but I think maybe that company might need to have a phone call and explain how things work. It just seems like we had took the assets to have 4 beds go out there because that's what we was asked to do, and we did that. And then we only leave with 2 cars. So I had time tied up with 2 drivers and 2 beds that were doing essentially nothing. This towing company didn't even clean up their mess. It was actually left, and the police officers had to end up cleaning it up or kicking it to the side. I just would like to get some clarity on. I know they're saying that, well, they can't make people tow cars. Well, you can't be sitting out there for an hour to call their own tow company. So if I could get maybe some clarity as far as what's expected from us in the future, that would be wonderful.
So I'll speak on this just to put it in perspective, I think, a little bit. To some extent, this is one of those tricky scenarios, and it's not one that occurs very often. In those cases where we're going to impound the car, then in that case, the officer would have had that tow company leave that car behind because we're going to impound it. In the case of a typical traffic accident, that is a civil matter. Our responsibility is to clear the road as quickly as possible. But if it can be, it is a private tow. We're not involved in the tow, other than to call for a tow company to come and get it, but it's a private tow. We're not going to impound it. We're not going to require a release to get it out. So that's the situation we were in here. It happened to be that it was property damage only traffic accident, and it's all a civil matter. So in this case, because we didn't have any cause to impound the vehicle, the task is accomplished by clearing the road as quickly as possible. The fact that they were there before the officers got there, and there were so many vehicles that were involved, that's not something we would interrupt. The goal was to clear the accident from the roadway and allow people to go. But we're not going to, even in that case, we're not going to impound any of those cars. We're going to call for tows, and they're all private tows. It could have been different, and certainly would have been different if there was a reason why those particular cars that other tow company picked up are cars that we would have impounded, and we would have had them drop it, and we would have had the district tow pick up that car. But in this case, that's the reason for it, is because it's all a private tow. That's a private arrangement that we're just trying to get the cars off the roadway. So I don't know if that clarifies it at all for you. Certainly if it was an impound situation, then that would have been your tow.
Just a follow-up question on that then. How this in particularly happened, because we had talked to some of the other people that we did tow when this company had showed up, the company out of Barberton had showed up to the scene. They passed out business cards to everybody that was in the accident and told them they give them discounted tows, cheaper than what Akron police will tow them for, and that they'll bring them back to their body shop and give them discounted tows out. I did call the owner of the Big Mike's and talk to him, and his reasoning for this was he was trying to drum up business for his body shop. So to me, this is a predatory towing type situation, and I'm not sure if that's like something that's going to be allowed to do in the city of Akron. But I can guarantee you it's going to be problems in the future if you find out there's an accident and you're going to have 7 tow truck companies out there trying to get it because this is going to be allowed. And a follow up on that is, if we get called to a scene and we don't end up towing the vehicle, and I went back in our records for the last 30 days, we've actually had 10 calls for service, 10 calls of service that was canceled. Is there a way that possibly some sort of conversation can happen with the officers that until they know for sure that they need a tow, not to call, and then we get out there and have this problem? Like if they'd have just said, hey, listen, we only need 2 because 2 is taken care of, we probably wouldn't even have this conversation. But when you're calling for 4 and we're using assets of 4 drivers and 4 trucks to go out there and we only get 2, I know this is an isolated incident, but then again, in the last 30 days, we've had 8 other incidences that we were canceled. And I'm not saying it could be for various reasons, but maybe before the officer calls service for towing, to make sure that that towing company is going to get it, or some sort of a guarantee that we are going to be towing that vehicle and we're not getting out of there and getting canceled.
All right. So the second point first, as far as the cancels, we could certainly sort of remind our folks about that. But at the same time, that is a judgment call when they get out there, and we really can't account for every single situation. But certainly we could remind the guys of the situation that tow companies are in as well. And certainly when they call and you go out and you're canceled, when in the meantime somebody else might need you in the same area, you weren't available. So we can address that internally. As far as the other, I recognize that it could be a problem if we have tow companies driving around the city soliciting business as they come across traffic accidents. There's no law against it though right now, and that would be something for council to address or to pick up from there. So I can't really speak to that one.
I guess what I'm hearing at this point is that, you know, the police department can work on a few changes to help things move more smoothly going forward in conjunction with the tow companies. It doesn't sound to me like something needs to be put on the agenda to deal with this. It seems like there's a back and forth that could take place, that could solve this or at least help alleviate the problem. Does anybody have any different idea on this? All right, so we won't add that to the agenda. Are there any other complaints?
No, no, sir.
Any other business that needs to be addressed? I guess before we go, I'd just like to bring up the annual inspections of each tow company that occurs. Do we have a status on that, or do we need to put that on the agenda for next time?
Those have been completed.
Okay. I remember last year there was an issue of each towing company needing to have a big wrecker, like a 25-ton or more, or at least have access to one with some type of agreement with another tow company that has one. Was that verified as part of the annual inspection?
I believe so. It's been a few weeks since I've looked at those, but yeah, there was no issue. Everything was checked off when those forms were returned back to me.
Look good, okay, great. Unless anybody else has anything, there's no other business. Can we get a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
All right, we're adjourned. Thank you. Oh, wait, timeout. Next meeting date, which I didn't look to see when our next meeting is. I'm sorry. Would it be in July?
You know, I think following the normal schedule would be July 8th or so.
Yeah, the second Tuesday in July.
Yeah. So
July
July
8th.
8th.
So the next meeting will be July 8th at 1:30.
Yeah.
All right, thanks, everybody. We're adjourned.